we have decent number of participants with us right now. I guess I'll start with the introduction. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen who've joined in so far and who are going to join in probably shortly, thank you very much for joining in. Today we have two amazing entrepreneurs and gentlemen who inspire me a lot personally. So we have Mr. Reekrit Serai and Mr. Ritesh Singh. And a small bit of introduction about them. So Reekrit wears multiple hats. He's an educator, publisher, entrepreneur, author, and investor. He's the managing director of Satluj Group of Schools, and he's also currently the co-chair of CII and Young Indians Chandigarh region. Also a member of Chandigarh Angels Network, very actively looking into startups, especially from the edtech space. And I've seen him mentor a bunch of startups very passionately in the past. Now,
Thank you.
speaking of Ritesh, I'm deeply inspired by the work that Ritesh and Akshat, both as co-founders of Eckovation, have done. Um, I call Ritesh as a social impact edtech entrepreneur, and both Ritesh and Akshat come from IIT Delhi. Today we have only Ritesh, just to clarify, here on this call. Uh, he's obviously the founder of Can Portfolio Startup Ecovation, which has touched upon close to 5 million students with 45,000 educators on board. He's got mentions from PM Modi for their very inspiring and a big project that they came up with, which is Unyan Banka, and they've made us really proud. They've done a couple of more things which Ritesh can probably speak about shortly, or maybe you can explore his LinkedIn profile and get to know more about him. In fact, get to know both Reekrit and Ritesh, what exactly they are into, and what are the new things that they are driving these days. But without saying much more, I'll straight away jump on to the questions which came from most of you. And uh, you know, just before that, maybe I'll ask Rikrit about how are you exactly tackling the impact of COVID-19 at Satluj Group. It's very crazy, overwhelming situation right
And
now.
yes,
So how are you
yeah.
tackling it at Satluj Group, Rikrit?
Yes, right. Um, Thank you for your question, Vineet. I mean, I'm happy to be a part of any panel talk of Can, as I've been a part of many in the past as well. And I like to congratulate Can and of course you for taking this platform to the next level. Of course, Can has become one of the best angel networks in the country. Of course, with of course your effort and of course the support of a lot of entrepreneurs from various spheres. Firstly, to whoever's a part of this online video chat right now at this point in time, I hope all of you are safe at home. Um, the testing times, these are very difficult times. We haven't found ourselves in this situation in the past. We're in the midst of a crisis, and this is new for all of us. So the biggest question that arises is that what is the new? And I'll talk about the new in terms of education first of all, since that's my expertise. Um, uh, the current crisis has put us in a tight spot. It has thrown us into the deep end of the ocean, and we were not uh, prepared for this. We were not trained for this. Especially educators, especially students, parents, so on and so forth. There are close to 1.5 billion students in the world, and there are hundreds of million of teachers, and those employees who are linked to schools, and of course the education industry in terms of support staff and ed tech and so on and so forth. Um, we never thought that we'll find ourselves in this position at this point of time. Without much deliberation, we've had to pivot to online classes. Whereas if you know, the education system the world over hasn't changed for hundreds of years, for centuries. So suddenly you find yourself in a position where you've got to teach students online. And when you teach students online, it isn't that easy because it comes with its own pros and cons. Educators are used to the traditional way of education, which you got someone who comes in front of the class and gives a lecture, and then you got homework, classrooms, so on and so forth. And this is what goes on in schools all over the world. Suddenly, you've you've got an explosion of various platforms which are used in terms of online teaching. So you've got Skype, you've got Zoom, you've got Google Hangouts, you've got Microsoft Teams, and there are multiple other ones as well which you can use. So we've tried and tested all of them. We initially began our classes with Zoom, but after a point, and then we found some issues in terms of uh, privacy. So some parents give us feedback that they aren't comfortable on the app. So we've shifted to Skype now. Now Skype comes with its own set of issues as well. Um, so if we shift to some other platform, of course, that's going to come with its own pros and cons. I think the most important skill that we need to hone around this point of time is adaptability. We have to adapt to change, but not only the fact that we have to change, the fact is that we have to change fast. I think that's the biggest skill that we've all learned over the last few weeks. And there are many other things, of course, which we learn. But the biggest impact in terms of schools has been the shift from an offline to an online model. And I see that in the future as well, since now we all used to various online platforms. I feel that there will be like a blended approach. Um, but that's the major change that I have seen over the last few weeks of the lockdown.
Great. Thank you very much, Reekrit. Ritesh, I have a very specific question for you. Majority of these technology startups, edtech, in esports, and so many other areas of life, they have grown a lot during this lockdown period. So, have you seen at Eckovation? Have you seen any mass user adoption yet due to COVID-19?
Right. So, great question, Vineet, and thank you, Reekrit, for summing up the situation which is out there. So, it is a challenging situation where lots and lots of people are facing issues in attending any physical activity. And this again has given advantage slightly to edtech industry, especially companies like Eckovation. So there is huge adoption we are seeing in B2C segment also, and also segments like B2G, where this perception is there that the inertia is very high in B2G, and this changing a fast changing tendency is very slow there. That cannot be, I mean, that is something which is not expected from them. Even they have also changed drastically with very high speed. Giving you an example from B2G and one example from B2C, uh, especially considering the states like Bihar, they are the first movers where they adapted this Ecovations platform, spread it all across on mobile. Even after 60% households, when they are having mobile tech, they didn't limit this program to mobile only. They started this program even using DD Bihar. So we build a hybrid program which is running on mobile as well as on Doordarshan, and along with that on AIR.
Excellent.
And with this way, we are covering 85% of our students who are studying in government school system. So, and this has happened in just 2 to 3 weeks of paperwork and all things done. Program has already started. We are getting 3 million footfall just for ninth and 10th standard in the state. So this is one example. Coming on to B2C part, courses even which has been floated by IIT program, the frequency of those courses has been increased. There's a huge demand coming, even thanks to the professors of IIT who are teaching on Eckovation's platform. They also agreed to start the batches, with higher frequency. So one program which we do with IIT Guwahati, AIML PG certification program, we started couple of batches during this lockdown, and all full. The size of the batches were totally jam packed. And again, we requested to get one more slot for him to start a similar program. So yeah, so it's unfortunate circumstances, but again, this challenge brings opportunity for EdTech, where EdTech companies are capitalizing a lot.
Sure, thank you very much. That was very elaborate. Now, do you see this paradigm shift in technology adoption as short term or long term? What's your take?
This is all a very good question. See, so I would like to give an analogy for this. So, very similar thing we saw in fintech when demonetization happened. Huge people shifted to mobile wallet, and at that time, the trust which was lacking on these wallet market, that was established. If you see for the edtech, very similar thoughts were there in minds of parents and even in the minds of users. कि ये मोबाइल पे पढ़ाई कैसे कर सकते हैं यार, ये ऑनलाइन पढ़ाई थोड़ी होती है. And these kinds, so in this period, now the market has shifted to online. एंड इसका एक लंबा इफेक्ट होगा. जब लॉकडाउन खत्म भी होगा, तो ये एक ट्रस्ट क्रिएट करके जाएगा कि इट हैज गिवन समथिंग टू द पीपल. देयर इज अ क्लियर लर्निंग आउटकम केस विच विल बी देयर, एंड ये फिर वो रहेगा. सो इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी अ शॉर्ट टर्म थिंग. इट विल डेफिनेटली स्टे इन द मार्केट, as it will create a trust in the mind of users.
Got it. Reekrit, what about you? What do you think? Is it a short-term thing or a long-term thing from an educator's
I
perspective?
think it's I think at this point in time, we can't really say. Um, I mean, if the lockdown if the lockdown is extended, which possibly I think it might not be after the third of March, but then if it is, education institutions are going to be the last to open. Um, so will it be a long term? Will it be a long term change? Of course, they are. There is going to be like a certain change, of course, in the mindset and the patterns of educating students. But will it be a long term change? I cannot say, but there will be at least a short term change. The only long term change is going to be in this sense that is that, as Ritesh also just said as well, that it will build a lot of trust, and once trust is built, I think parents will be open to edtech a bit more, schools will be open to edtech a bit more. So yes, the market space in terms of B2C and B2B will open up a bit more. But in terms of usage patterns, we really can't say at this point in time. No one could predict the crisis in the first place, so we can't really say what's going to happen post the crisis.
Got it. Thank you very much. Now, we keep hearing about Industry 4.0. And in one of your recent articles, you had written about Education 4.0. So we keep hearing about Education 4.0 these days, which is essentially also one of the titles. It is the title of our discussion today, actually. What is Education 4.0? If you could elaborate a bit.
Well, over the last few years, we have seen that education has, to a certain extent, been in sync with the industry, but there are a lot of gaps that still need to be filled. That's why India's got a very high unemployment rate even after higher education, and that's why there's a gap in terms of the skill set and the demand in terms of industry. So that's why our workforce isn't fully trained as well, because the education industry isn't up to mark, and there are a lot of skills that we need to inculcate in our workforce at this point in time. So the fourth industrial revolution is going on at this point of time. We're about to enter the fifth industrial revolution as well because of the online platforms which we have, but that will still take a few more years. So education 4.0 is in sync with industries 4.0. Now, education 4.0, in the simplest of terms, means the widespread usage of tech. So if you remember the first industrial revolution which we had, which of course was the steam engine, and that's how factories and so on were built. And then we had the second and third in terms of future tech and in terms of the internet. So this current industrial revolution revolves around the mobile. Education is trying to revolve around the same as well. Over the last few decades or so, education has shifted from predominantly an offline platform to a mixture of STEM, STEAM, and now we are on the path to SMAC. So STEM and STEAM are science, tech, engineering, and math. SMAC is something that I'm sure will excite a lot of entrepreneurs because that's where we're headed right now. It is social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. So education 4.0 is purely going to be based on SMAC with, of course, a few offline uh, ways of teaching that we still have in place.
All right, thank you. Now, we've seen a sudden spike in the number of entrepreneurs trying to venture into edtech, and those who have already ventured into edtech. We keep on getting altogether new applications these days from the founders trying to raise. There is a huge surge from that respect. Ritesh, what's your take on, say, one of the most important things that one should be prepared with for venturing into tech?
Right. So it's a very good question, and it comes in everyone's mind, even if, independent of the sector where they are going into. And when we talk about education sector, the kind of challenges which we have is huge, and it is diverse as well. uh, and that is something which is very important. And even so, this is one sector which always so overall, if we see, if analyze sector, if more people are coming, the entire sector is getting benefited. Why I'm saying this is because the kind of diversity it has, there is a clear advocacy coming from all across globe that when we are talking about education, it should go in more personalized and more contextualized way. So the more the number of companies are coming, we are seeing how so personalized adaptive learning concept is floating. And so especially in education, the fuel is considered as so content is a fuel for education, especially edtech segment. And this fuel is very different from region to region. So this fuel cannot be used, which is getting used in Punjab or Bihar or Rajasthan. Every state has its own. So more the player will be coming, it is going to benefit the sector. So especially the point, especially for the people who are coming to the sector and planning a venture in the segment, is to study the problem first and then coming up with the solution. Especially giving my story a bit. So in right from when I was there in engineering, in my third year of engineering, I started one of the non-profitable organization where I tried doing something in e-learning, based on my assumptions, and I drastically failed in that because when I went onto the ground, the reality was diagonally opposite to what was running in my head. So and then that is the reason when I started Eckovation, it has started with a year-long research that on what is going on in education and how we are going to bring the convergence. So understanding the problem and then coming up with the solution is going to give better retention for the organization and for those entrepreneurs also who are coming to the education segment. And there is no fear of having multiple players. The kind of market we have, the entire segment demands higher number of players to cater to the population which we have or the globe at.
Great. That's a great point. Reekrit, from one question from the investor's perspective, we've seen the investors have also gone bullish over investing in edtech. Ada
Yes.
24/7, Pariksha, and there are so many startups who recently raised their first rounds of funding or the subsequent ones. Can you share some of the reasons why investors have gone bullish in investing into edtech?
Well, I think that like sharks, I think have smelled blood. But if you if you look at it from that point of view, it is blood in terms of top line growth, but then not bottom line growth. Now, I have invested in a few edtech startups in the past, which you know about. A few of them have bombed, of course, and then a few of them are still uh, going strong, and a few of them have seen a surge in uh, demand over the last few weeks. But I think that there's I think that if you look at the education industry, it is largely misunderstood, and it is misunderstood in this sense that it is seen as though it's a very vast market. If I can just share a few stats and figures, the education industry in India has topped over 100 billion dollars in terms of market size. So this is the offline and the online education industry. But edtech is going to touch around $2 billion next year. So the size of the edtech industry is very, very small. So when investors look at edtech, they confuse this with education, and the edtech industry will grow, and it will take some time, of course, to grow. Uh, but a major feature about the Indian edtech industry is that it's still trying to solve the simplest of issues, and it's been quite a few years now. I feel the Indian education industry has to move beyond the current sectors that it's found itself in. So if you see, test prep is still the biggest. Uh, test steps, test prep still has the biggest market share in terms of edtech, which is close to around 60 to 70%. I have a whole list of facts and figures in front of me right now, but um, uh, there's so many players in terms of test prep that if you type the word if you type the words test prep on in a search engine, there are multiple startups that will come up. And then in the past as well, the medtech industry was initiated in India with the smart classes. Then we went on to ERPs. So I think there's a mismatch in terms of the demand that we have for edtech. I think um, a lot of the future tech like AR, VR, MR, AI, they can solve a lot of problems. But it is the actual implementation that really makes the edtech industry suffer in India. So unless we come up with a platform that can cater to the needs of every stakeholder, I feel that edtech will find itself in the position that it is in now. And I think now is the time to innovate. EdTech entrepreneurs should get in touch with schools, should get in touch with parents, should get in touch with students, and initiate a discussion as to what are the actual issues that they are facing and how can those issues be solved.
Great. In continuation to this, I have like three items on my list, Reekrit, and you can tell me what should you value more today from today's perspective. A new edtech marketplace like Udemy, a new K-12 education platform like Byju's, or a new competitive education platform like an academy. What will you value more
Okay,
today?
I would be bold enough to say none at this point in time. Why? You know why? Because I have an answer for like that as well. All of these have been tried and tested, and they are wonderful platforms, and they have served their purpose, and they will in the future as well. What we need right now is a holistic. Sorry, I mean, if you look at me from the school management's perspective, and someone who's running education institutions in India, and someone who's in touch with a lot of parents and students and teachers on a daily basis, what the education industry needs right now is a holistic solution that is a mixture of an AI based LMS, but also an ERP, and also also a skilling platform. So I feel that the individual platforms have addressed a lot of issues in the past, but it's the time for a blended platform to come to the forefront, which can solve a lot of problems, because um, it's virtually getting impossible to run your schools now, given the current situation that you can't run schools in brick and mortar buildings. So a holistic platform that can serve a lot of needs. I think that's the need. That's the need of the hour.
Thank you very much. That really clarifies the doubt, and the dust is finally settled. Ritesh, Ritesh, what should be the user adoption technology of an edtech startup? How should they go about getting users on board?
Right. So one thing which is very right what Ritik has said is talking to the stakeholder and identifying the need is important. Especially, so I would like to highlight how we did it and how the initial user adoption happened with Eckovation. So we exactly did the very same thing what Reekrit has emphasized. We literally talked to almost 10,000s of parents, teachers, and students. And after the research went over, when we were coming up with the solution, we literally talk to these stakeholders that we are coming up with such solution. Will you be able to use this? And guess what? They agreed to, because we were solving their problem. And if you remember, when I came to Can for the presentation for my first pitch, I was telling exactly the same thing, that we have such, so the research on which we have, so the user base on which we did the research, they are the first users we had on board. And once if you will start showing the learning outcome or the impact on those users, एजुकेशन इंडस्ट्री एक ऐसी इंडस्ट्री है जहां वर्ड ऑफ माउथ काफी वैलिडेट करता है चीजों को. And we are still seeing. So if you are liking it, you are sharing it with your friends, and because they are your peer network, same age, they'll come on board as well. So it gives a chain reaction. So if the product is doing good, it gets into the chain reaction where you will start getting more and more users. So this is the story of Eckovation, how it has happened. And again, it is then supported by digital marketing and other sorts of marketing which we did with us. And again, so this was one part. And then when we started B2G segment, that was one of the most critical part for of our journey. Because that was one decision which we took to get into B2G, where the
Ritesh, sorry, can't really hear you.
Right, I think you've lost the voice.
oh, is it audible now?
Audible
Yeah.
now, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So
Just lost you for
I
like
was
15,
emphasizing.
20 seconds.
Oh, okay, okay. So I was saying that I didn't remember when we started the project with government school system at that point of time. Any startup were doing that, and that was one segment where the demand was huge, the challenges were huge. There were issue of access to education. Let's not talk about quality education in those segments. We started doing that there also. We just started with a very short, just 40 schools we took for 1 year. We improved the result, we improved the passing percentage there, and guess what, that 40 school has now been converted into 15,000 schools just in 3 years, with more than 5 million users in that segment. So education is one segment where it can, so chain reaction can start. Even if you can start, even if you start with the lowest, 1,000 2,000 set of users, they'll do the marketing for you.
Excellent, Ritesh. And this really reminds me
That's nice.
when you took the approach of B2G, when you took the decision of
Right.
going to B2G, we were surprised, but we were so
Right.
happy. Today we are so proud you took that approach. and created a mass impact.
Thank you. Thank
So now, in continuation to this, Ritesh, what are the clear differentiators that an aspiring entrepreneur into edtech should keep in mind to not become another Me Too startup?
Uh, Again, yeah. So, very good question, and especially in this segment, so again, I'll repeat a few of my answers. That understanding problem is important, and the kind of the diversity which we have, different regions have their own sets of problems. We are seeing it in 8 states now. We have expanded the project in 8 states. All states are having their own sets of challenges, and once if we are coming up when coming up with a solution to solve that, that becomes one differentiator. And the point is, even if it is overlapping a little bit with other ideas, it's fine, because the kind of market size we have, it is again going to. So, I mean, this is very much clear, and especially the kind of talks we are listening, that exist in such a bigger market. So solving problems in a more contextualized way will separate, the idea from existing ones. And again, it is going to give a great growth once the problem will be understood and solution is coming in a very contextualized and personalized way.
Excellent. So my round of questions is over, and I've got several questions from the audience over emails. I'm going to first take those questions and then move on to the questions which people are asking here in real time in the comment box. So Savi Nalini had a question, and that's very relevant to what Reekrit was telling earlier. He was giving away some ideas, onto what should the edtech entrepreneurs be building today, that CRM, that ERP, and LMS, whatever the elements he added. So Savinalini had a question on how really an edtech entrepreneur should approach the customers, which is say the schools and colleges, and would they be interested to buy such technologies built by entrepreneurs?
I think that one of the most interesting and the most difficult markets to crack in terms of edtech is B2B, because there is no guaranteed ROI on the money that you spend. Of course, if you look at B2C, there is some traction that you can get eventually, but B2B is purely based on trust and word of mouth. Um, even if you have like high-end conferences and then you call all educators over there, I have seen a lot of top education brands not make any sales after seminars and conferences and so on and so forth. So I think it's really a question about what is a problem that you're trying to solve, and whether you're able to solve it in the right way. When it comes to B2B sales, in terms of education, it's also important to keep in mind that your geographic location also matters. So let me take an example of ERP players itself. Now you would find that there isn't one common major ERP player in India. They are scattered in every region. So you'll have a few in the north, you'll have a few in the south, you'll have multiple in the west, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of points that you have to keep in mind in terms of B2B sales. You possibly will not be the first one to offer what you are offering to schools and higher education institutions. So study your market properly. Make sure that you're in touch with the right stakeholders. uh, Relationships are very, very, very important, because whoever's into B2B sales, they have been in touch with their clients for years, and you're trying to break that bond that they have. Because if that bond is broken, that's how the sale will be transferred to you. So these are just a few points, of course. There are multiple other points that you should keep in mind, but it isn't easy, and you can burn as much money as you'll burn in terms of B2C as well. So B2B doesn't guarantee a lesser burn. It can even be much more in various circumstances.
You know what I feel? This deserves to go out as a LinkedIn post from you, or maybe as a blog post. This can actually guide many
Yeah.
other people who are trying to venture into B2B tech, I'd say B2B at tech.
I have tried in terms of I have shared this on various platforms in the past as well. I think that I'll share this again. I think the last time I shared it was a few years ago, but then this is the right time to share it again.
Excellent, excellent. So Anshula had a comment, not really a question, and I really respect this kind of a comment that she made. She said she wanted to improve education technology in such a way that no student dies out of not being able to crack competitive exams. You know, there have been so many suicide cases where kids gave up and they just threw away their lives for not being able to crack the competitive exam. So really respect this comment, Anshula.
Yeah, that's a very nice question.
Yeah. So Ritesh, one question from Deep Karan, and this is not really education or edtech focused, but startups in general.
Yeah.
He's asking how to do a startup with very little initial investment.
Good question and a very challenging one to answer. So, um, right. So, point is again. So finding. So again, doing a startup. I don't know. I mean, randomly, if that decision comes in your mind, that is not really right. Also, we really need to give 100% if we are going for a startup. So there should be an inner call coming from you, and that should be for a specific segment or a problem which you feel in your heart. And if that is there, even if the fund is minimal, you will always optimize it to start something and to prove something in that segment. And once that is done, again, people like you are out there to support the initiative. uh, Giving our example, I mean, we didn't have we can't say that we have a limited fund, because we worked for a couple of years and we saved around 15-20 lakh rupees for us. So in that we did a year-long research and burnt our money to validate the idea. But again, given such circumstances, again, the extensive research we did it for say 10,000 people, that can be limited to 1,000 or 500, and again that can be validated and things can be started. So I mean, you only can answer this question because you have heard a lot of stories than me, because I guess every month there are people coming and pitching for ideas. And I'm very sure you have seen stories where in limited fund people have started something, proven initial results, and raised fund from Can and other platforms.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, probably this could be a way out, but I'm really not a good person. Maybe Reekrit and you should answer this question, because you guys are always hearing
We're
stories.
sailing in the same boat. I think that we're all sailing in the same boat.
Guys, in continuation to what Ritesh said, I'd say, go to charlieangelsnetwork.com, explore our blog. We are writing blog posts regularly. We are posting regularly on our blog. And these are the questions, which are answered in form of the blog posts. And these questions come to us from many sources. Many people that we meet in person, we used to meet in person, not now, but many other platforms through which people approach us, ask us questions. These are the questions that we are addressing through our investors like Reekrit, who's been contributing content, and through the team of Can, of course. Now, one question, Reekrit, which came from Abhinav, and that's very much relatable to how Satluj Group has been taking the initiatives to support their young student community to become entrepreneurs. You've been sensitizing them for a long, long time. A student asked,
Yes, you have. Yes, you did.
named Abhinav asked this question. He asked, how should students prepare themselves for startup journey? And I'm sure there are many students attending this webinar right now.
I've been asked this question many times in the past, of course, from various students, and I've spoken to them regularly about this in various parts of the country and the world. Um, well, first of all, your aim should be clear. Do you just want to become an entrepreneur because it sounds fancy, or do you actually have a problem that you want to solve? If it sounds fancy, and then there are a lot of other things to do as well. Try being an astronaut or a race car driver, or an Instagram, you know, hot shot. So there are a lot of things that you can do in terms of them being fancy. But if you actually want to solve a problem, if you want to hustle for that problem, if you believe in that problem, and if you believe in yourself and you think that you can give the best solution that no one else in the world can, that's when you should become an entrepreneur, and you should love the work that you're doing. So in terms of edtech itself, because since we're talking about edtech in India, over the last 6 to 7 years, or over the last decade or so, there have been around 5,000 edtech startups that have come into existence. Only 25% of them have survived till now. So you've roughly got around 1,500 to around 2,000 startups in terms of edtech in India that are surviving, and only lesser than 5% of them have raised funding. So it is not easy. It is not easy. But the aim should be clear from day one that every startup is a business. You should be generating income as soon as you can. You should have a strong bottom line. Raising funding sounds like it's a lot of fun, but I'm sure there are a lot of entrepreneurs on this call, and Ritesh and Vineet know that that's the hardest part. That is not the easiest part. Um, the easiest part is to, of course, is to sit at home and believe in yourself and think that you can change the world. But actually going out there to change it is the task, and no amount of money can help you unless you actually believe in the issue that you're solving and you believe in yourself, I feel.
Excellent, excellent. And now, I'll be jumping to the questions from our comment box. Abhishek had this very interesting question. He's asking, is online education for schools feasible at all? And in continuation to this, what about examinations? Can they be conducted online as well?
Well, I think given the current situation, possibly in the next few months, they can be. Um, there are a lot of intricacies that we have to keep in mind over here. Uh, First of all, is the fact that if you conduct an examination online, then the students have access to all of the content online as well. So it's basically going to be like an open book test. So we have experimented with those in the past. We are experimenting with them even now as well through the various educational apps that we use and the various platforms that we use. But I think uh, the crisis, COVID-19, is forcing us to think out of the box as educators. Um, we're not really sure as to what's going to happen, but there is a possibility that your final examinations can be online. But we're still trying to come up with a solution which is practical, I feel.
Great. Um, and in continuation to this, Deepthi has asked, how can we train our educators for inculcating the edtech efficiently um, and efficiency into teaching learning process?
Okay. Should I answer that
You
one?
should, you should. The next one goes to Ritesh. This one is for you.
Okay. Right. um, well, I think we've shocked our educators into enough at this point of time as well. Suddenly, from an offline classroom, they have been transported into an online classroom, and they've been thrown into the deep end of the ocean, and they've been forced to learn brand new skills within a matter of days. So we've been shocking them even more by asking them to come up with presentations, by asking them to send notes on WhatsApp, by asking them to record their classes and send those on WhatsApp, by asking them to instantly use all the educational apps that they can. So there's a lot of I think during the crisis I think that the TLP means this is a learning process. That's an educational term. So I assume that you're a part of the education industry. The pedagogies will change. Um, the only best way to teach faculty and staff at this point in time is to shocking them into accepting the new. Though there are various workshops that we've had, but nothing can replace the fact that you have to practice what you're doing. So it's taking them some time. They have adapted, and I'm pretty happy to say that teachers all over the world, hats off to them. This is very difficult for them to do. They are working beyond the call of duty. Those of you who have kids, of course, would know that your teachers are taking extra pains, and they are working 24/7. Um, and a lot of them are working without pay. There's a lot of issues in terms of education that various state uh, the governments, and this is something that goes beyond this masterclass, but I'll just mention this because I'm speaking about this on various platforms. Various state governments have passed this regulatory act that schools cannot charge fees during the lockdown. Now the problem is that the support staff and the staff, they are working day in and day out to make sure that every child is being educated. As I said, they're going beyond the call of duty. They have picked up skills that they did not have in the past as well, and they are being expected to work without running their households. Now they are sweeping, they are cleaning, they are washing their dishes, they're going to the market like parents, like every other parent in the whole in the whole country. They are buying their ration and so on and so forth. And on top of that, they are taking multiple classes per day, and they are using platforms and ways to teach that they've never used in the past, and they're being expected to not be paid for that. I think that's a bit in human, and we all have to keep this point into consideration. So I request whoever's a part of this call, if your family, if your nephews and nieces, your siblings, your kids are in a school, I request you, please take into consideration the fact that your teachers are working day in and day out to make sure that your child's education does not suffer. Support them by paying your fees on time, please.
Great, great. In fact, you touched upon this very interesting perspective, with government's intervention into, hampering how the schools are operating right now. Ritesh, uh, does any of the government policies right now affect Eckovation as well, or edtech industry as a whole?
Uh, for now, I mean, it is more often, so especially talking about B2C is something where it is catalyzing. Whereas on the other part, the whole expansion program which we had this into B2G model is now on hold because of this lockdown situation. But that is again is something which is acceptable, seeing the safety situations which we have. So, but again, in B2C market, in digital education, it is so there is no specific regulation which came from government side. But on other because of this situation, it is catalyzing the entire market. The number of user acquisition is growing exponentially.
Excellent. I think this should answer Arjun's question. He had a very relatable question, and both Reekrit and Ritesh have already answered it. So, Ritesh, for you, Soumya had a question. How do you really measure the income? Sorry, not income, but the
Yeah.
outcome.
Right,
That's
right,
a funny one. I was.
The income is through your
right.
through your banking app.
So yeah, she had a question that how do you measure the outcome of learning, from the edtech platform,
Right,
and
right, right.
how different were the results pre and post the classes? Now you can relate this with your Unnayan Banka program, and you've
Right.
widely spoken about it many times. There is a very
Right.
interesting blog post on Eckovation as well, which speaks about the impact created within a few months, in the rural education sector, where there was a dearth of even finding a teacher in a classroom, to then adopting Eckovation via B2G approach, and how drastically the results came out. The positive results came out. So Ritesh, would you want to elaborate a bit on that?
Right, right. So the first question on learning outcome, there's a very standard procedure of measuring that. So there's something called baseline test. So when you are starting the program, you need to take a baseline test, which is basically designed in a way where a topic so for one. So there are multiple topics, and for multiple topics, there are multi-level questions are given in that. So once a student is attempting that, and if you're digitalizing the responses, you know where they are at present level, whether they are at level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So that's where you're baselining the existing crowd which you have, or the sample set which you have. And then you do your program, and then you take a mid-level assessment and end-level assessment, and then you compare the result from the baseline. And through this, so doing this improvement analysis, you come up with the learning outcome results, how impactful the program was. And in some of the cases, it is also been benchmarked as. So if, let's say, if you are doing this program for 10th student, generally the benchmarking is done through the passing percentage. What was the passing percentage in board examination last year? And if you have run the program, how it has changed. So these are the way how learning outcome is measured. But the first methodology is the standard methodology, which is followed all across globe: baselining, mid-level, end level. Especially in case of Eckovation. So for us, when we started the program, two KPIs, were affecting government a lot. One was the passing person. So if you guys remember, 2017 was the time when this whole drama of board examination was exposed in news all across media of Bihar board. And just after that, government put huge restriction, and cheating was totally banned across state. And the next time when result came, the passing percentage dropped to 30%. And that situation was alarming. 100 students giving exams, 70 are failing, only 30 are passing. So at that time, we got this request if we can do any intervention to improve these measures. We went there, and the very surprising second number came to us. That was the attendance which was there in government school system. That was just 17% attendance which was there, average 17% attendance which was there. After that, we started optimizing our program for government school system. We did that. We implemented the model for 8 months duration, and it has created a great impact. Very first was on attendance. 53% was the average attendance when the program started.
Wonderful.
From that, and
Wonderful.
the best thing happened in passing percentage. So we schools which we chose, the average passing percentage was 37% last year. That jumped to 71%
Wow.
in just 8 months, or 7 to 8 months of the interval. And that was one project for which we received Prime Minister's Excellence Award also. And seeing the impact of that project, the state has also taken the decision of expanding that program to 5,700 schools of Bihar. So that is how
Excellent. Wonderful to learn this.
Excellent,
Thank you.
excellent, Ritesh. That's why we are so proud of you.
Excellent work.
Thank you.
Amazing. Now, in interest of the limited time we have, and I'm sure everyone would like to jump out of their couches wherever you're sitting and grab a cup of tea, I'm going to ask one last question from Ritesh. It's a very interesting one from Mehak. It says, does EdTech promote inclusivity or exclusivity when it comes to different sections of the society? And the pace at which technology is growing, is it actually increasing the gap between different groups? So rich versus poor, do you see that gap increasing in terms of how they are being educated? In fact, Reekrit can also add later to this, before we conclude.
A very important question, and I'll tell you. So, Rikrit emphasized a lot that a problem which is there in your heart, if you're trying to solve, if you're planning to solve that dedicatedly, then jumps into this entrepreneurship journey. This was the real problem which was there in my heart. I belong to a small, township of Bihar. I'm from Chhapra, and the major thing which bothered me a lot when I was in engineering, I was going to, so when I was in IIT, my roommate was from Mothers International, one very hi-fi school of Delhi, and I was coming from Chhapra. Seeing him, I was I was totally surprised. भाई ऐसा भी बच्चा होता है क्या, ऐसे भी स्कूल्स होते हैं क्या, ये कहाँ कहाँ से कैसे लोग आ गए हैं, ऐसे डिबेट कर रहे हैं पहले दिन डायरेक्टर से आईआईटी दिल्ली के. I was so shocked after seeing that. And on the other side, I was seeing my friends who was still there in Chhapra struggling to pass their inter examination. And that day, I realized the kind of divergence we have in education. And from that day, this problem was there in my head. In our late night hostel discussions, these were the topics when we did discussions with different people, professors, friends, and different experts also. And I've started working for that. So Eckovation started just because of the divergence which I observed and the question that you have highlighted, Meher. So seeing the current situation, so technology is now bringing convergence. Why I'm saying this is because this mobile tech revolution which has happened, believe it or not, I mean, there are people. So I guess day before yesterday, I tweeted some of the photographs on my Twitter handle. Go and see the images. Broken walls, broken bed. बच्चा ऐसे बैठा हुआ है मोबाइल लेकर के, कॉपी पेन लेकर के और पढ़ रहा है नए ऐप के साथ, और आप देख करके सरप्राइज हो जाइएगा किस तरीके से चीजें बदल रही हैं. And I'll tell you why convergence is coming. Through similar initiative जो उन्नयन में हुआ था जब 71% आया था, it is not just helping people who are just failing the examination, it's also helping people who are at mid level are going to the top level. So technology is bringing, democratizing the reach of quality education to all. And that is the reason why it is bringing convergence. अब पॉइंट ये है कि जो बहुत पीछे है वहां एक्सेलरेशन और ज्यादा बढ़ सकता है, just like the development indexes. So the growth rate which we have it in developing countries versus developed countries, developing country का definitely ज्यादा है, तो convergence आ सकता है. तो जो rate of change है learning outcome का, that can be one thing which can prove this also, validate this also, that convergence is coming. And again, if the more edtech platform will come, it will more democratize the reach of quality education to all.
Excellent. Very nice thoughts you shared. Reekrit, you want to add something?
Very nice thoughts. Yes, I'm really inspired by what I've heard Ritesh say over the last few minutes. I think if you look at this point, tech is a great leveler. Those students who, of course, couldn't afford access to quality education in the past, due to various circumstances of, let's say, the location in which they stay, or due to various economic backgrounds, EdTech particularly does give them access to world-class education at their fingertips, and it's an important role that EdTech, of course, and in various cases, even like tech plays. It has led to a whole different world, and I think it's helped India grow a lot over the last few years. The internet penetration in India is still not the highest in the world. We are still, I think, if I'm right, I think we're towards the 70% or the late 60% mark. When with the internet penetration, if it increases, of course, then there will be then we'll actually get access to the actual human resources that we have that we have in the country, that are spread across the villages, that are spread across the smaller towns. And I think that the focus of edtech entrepreneurs over the next few years should definitely be the smaller towns and the rural area, because we haven't unlocked the potential of those areas yet. And there's a lot of potential that can of course be explored. But yes, edtech is a great leveler, and I hope that entrepreneurs, edtech entrepreneurs, edupreneurs like Ritesh and those on this video call do step up and fight for the right of education for all, because that's the need of the hour if we have to grow as a country.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. I'm sure the questions are never going to end. And it was really excellent chatting with you both. I really enjoy speaking to both of you all the times.
Thank you very much.
Now, quickly on a parting note, just let our listeners know how can they get in touch with you in case they have any other questions. What's the best mode to reach out to you?
Well, I try to be as active as I can on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Uh, Even if you look at other platforms recently, WhatsApp, I'm not that active on, but I think the best way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn or Facebook. I try and post as often as I can. I used to be very active on these platforms, but then over the last few years, I think that I've mellowed down a bit. But I'm trying to come back on track. But please do drop me a mail. My mail ID is my name only, reekritserai@gmail.com. LinkedIn and Facebook, you can drop a message,
Excellent.
and I'll try and answer any queries that you send my way.
Thank you, Ritesh.
It's the same answer. LinkedIn and Facebook will be the great medium. I'll just drop my links here in the chat ID. So, I'll share the email address and my LinkedIn link here in the chat. And I'm looking forward to the questions. I'll definitely post my response.
Before we drop off, if at all you can, maybe while I conclude the session, if you can drop in links, that'll be great.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you.
So I have just sent my mail ID in the group chat. So if you want to, you can send me mails on that mail ID.
Perfect. Thank you very much once again to both of you, and I would like to apologize to anybody else whose questions we couldn't really take up this time. But I assure you, in the future sessions, we'll try to include as many as we can. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. You are very integral to our inner circle community, and we hope to create more value for all of you. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much. Had a wonderful time.
Thank you. Thanks for sparing your time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.